Just warming up for a DJ set that night at Bolsjefabrikken, where I met with Klumpen, and I saw him while he was like standing there on his turntables. He was like rolling a joint with one hand. I'm not sure if it was the ambience of the room. I'm not sure if it was the smoke around the room, which made me see that. But I do remember it as he was doing something with one hand, making it sound like it was mixing, and on the other hand, he was definitely like doing a joint. I was like, wow, this guy. Like, I want to be as good as this guy to roll joints one day and be a DJ.
My name is Jack Porcari, your host, and today I'm joined by two very special guests. Rasmus Poulsen is a journalist, entrepreneur, double platinum rapper and songwriter. His multifaceted background as a cannabis connoisseur and creative led him to the creation of Raske Planter, one of Denmark's premier legal outlets for CBD hemp, focusing on sustainability and high quality products. We're also joined today by Jana, who goes by Provocate and is the head of operations for Raske Planter. Thank you so much, guys, for being here.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for having us.
Of course, yeah. So I really want to start off with how we came into contact, which I think was a little bit unique. I make a zine, and you guys found that in Thailand at the first Ganja Cup. So maybe just tell me a little bit about what that was like and how you came across that.
It was me. I was sent by Rasmus to this cup in Thailand called Prem Pavi Ganja Cup, which is like a cup which is focusing on like sun-grown weed, which is something we really like advocate for. So we went there to join. I was actually there as a judge for the outdoor category. And there was, I think your magazine was laying around over there, and like somebody came around to me and was like, yo, have you gotten one of these like examples of it? I actually think we have one of them in the shop somewhere as well, one of those examples of them. And was that person called Buffalo Blossom or something like that?
Blossom
Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the person later connected us like throughout like social media, but the whole thing was like we was actually supposed to like have done this. It could have been great to have done this like out in the jungles with like Prem Pavi and at the cup, but now we're doing it at a different area, and it's still gonna be the same experience, I guess. But it came across like as something. It was an opportunity for us to speak with somebody who loved cannabis the same way as we do. And I could see on your work that like what you really stand for in cannabis and like the natural things and like the way nature connects all the elements of cannabis for you back into like a magazine. That's what it does for us as a company, and like for us with the vision of like getting this legalized in some kind of way as well. So it got really presented well for us out there. Like, hey, speak with this guy. He might be interested in speaking with you guys, and you might even have something really nice to conversate about. So that's what we're trying to do here today.
Beautiful. No, I'm so glad you loved the zine, and yeah, it's from cannabis lovers to cannabis lovers. So I'm glad you felt that too. And one thing I wanted to ask, Jana, was you said that you're forever a creative student of the, you're a student of the creative universe, right? And so wanted to really understand what that means to you and what you've learned in your creative journey as we cross paths and talk about this.
Well, like I think it's actually something I might have read somewhere, to be honest. Like I don't want to sound like I'm that interesting to like I figured this like saying out, but like it's something I read somewhere and really stuck with me, like the way of like thinking us as students instead of us as like masters and somebody who has to like compete against each other. But like instead of having that thriving for like being the best, I just wanted to be the best at learning. So I felt like that saying really connected with me in a way of like, I started with being a DJ, and now I am here like operating a ganja company, and it's the same skill sets which operates in all the things I've been doing. Like, and I feel like I've been learning from like doing my own clothing back in the days as a DJ, and like trying to do that until it's the same practice that you do with everything. And I just think I learned that really early and kept like putting on to that. So instead of saying I'm a designer, I just wanted to say I'm a student of it. So I could now transition into be, if I wanted to, a musician, if I wanted to, like, or something really great, like a gardener or something, because I didn't define it by saying I wanted to be the best designer or the best musician. I just wanted to be like a creative student. So for me, it's been like that. Like I started with doing clothing and like DJing, and that came with me having to figure out how to do my own like events, because like nobody wanted to book a hip hop DJ in Holbæk, where I'm from. That's 1 hour drive from Copenhagen. It looks like where Rasmus is at right now. It kind of looks like that everywhere. Countryside. So hip hop wasn't really a thing that people wanted to book out there. So I had to find my own outlet from there. And then I figured out like if I did clothing as well, I might have another outlet. And then I started doing my own graphics for the clothing company. That led to me learning like Photoshop, and like then like doing video editing for like, I had to do all the things myself because I didn't have the resources to do it otherwise. So becoming resourceful was like, I think that's the best thing I learned, like from being creative, and like that's what I take out of that saying as well. Like keep on learning, because there will never be a point where I think I'm good enough, and it's enough for me. Like I just want to be better in feeling and like experiencing what can you say that the times are at right now, what technologies can do. I'm just a nerd. That's the long way of saying that. I'm just a really big nerd.
No, you're a nerd, and that's totally cool. I love that, man. I love that about you. I wanted to ask, Rasmus a little bit about the musical journey, because you did DJing, you do DJing too. When did you start your early DJing with the Rootsman Hi-Fi, and kind of how did that evolve maybe into your label? Was that connected, or tell me?
Yeah, I guess. I think I started DJing when I was like 16 or something, which is eons ago. And then Rootsman Hi-Fi, my reggae sound system, we started in 1999. So that's coming up to 25 years ago. It's my journey has been one of, I had a dream from I was 13 that I wanted to be a rapper. And I sort of tried to do it, and it didn't really work out for me, I guess. And then I found all kinds of other things that I could do. Be a journalist became a thing for me, because then I could be a part of the hip hop community, which was my everything for a bunch of years. And then I could play a part in the community without being a part of the competition of being like the best rapper or whatever, which I certainly wasn't. And then DJing became, okay, that's another thing I can do where I'm not completely, I can sort of hide behind other people's work in a way, the same as a journalist. What I did a lot was find people that I thought were interesting and get them to say stuff I thought was cool or interesting, and or play music that I liked. And the same thing as a DJ, you can be a part of it without creating sort of the core of it. But there was still my dream to make music, and the years and the decades went, and the DJing became more and more creative, I guess you can say, with using the microphone as well. And that led, when I was about 30 or something, it finally led to me recording my first songs as an artist. And that shifted my life quite a bit. So I stopped doing the journalism work, and I have been professionally a musician since 2011, and the label thing that started just from wanting to release my own music and not be not be. I wanted it to be so that if it fucked up, it was my mistake. But if it went well, I wanted it to be my fault as well. I just kind of and also the fact that I started so late in life actually making music. Usually when people debut as a musician, they'll be around the early 20s, and I was around 30. And I had already been working in radio, and I've been friends with so many musicians and independent label people. And so I thought, okay, I kind of feel that I know everything there is to know. I might as well just do it myself. And then we'll see how it goes. Also, there wasn't really like a big, interesting record company that was out for me, so it was also an easy decision that way, in a way, I guess. But I've been quite inspired by punk rock, the anarchist scene here in Copenhagen. I was quite a bit a part of, and in there, the norm is to do it yourself. Like it's DIY culture. And coming from a hip hop background, I would see, okay, my rap colleagues would, talk forever about releasing a record, and then they'll put out maybe a 12-inch single or something when the timing is right and they found the right label and blah blah blah. And in the meantime, my punk rock friends would have been on tour in the rest of the world because they put out 2 albums because they just made it themselves. And I thought, that's more me.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I want to go back to 2011 there because, I listened to your music and it seems to me at least that it's centered around lived experiences, acceptance, personal expression, even provocative philosophies there. And, that label Contraphone is how it's also spelled. Did that kind of play a role in establishing the, I guess, artistic vision as it relates to politics with the release of, Bohair and Runt in September there? That kind of grow over time?
It kind of was there already because I was just, it's correct. The Contraphone was a political label. They wanted to put out political music, and they actually asked me if I wanted to make a song without, like, I wasn't making music at that time. They were just like, hey, I mean, you're DJing and you're saying all this political stuff and you're playing at all the demonstrations and all the riots, and why don't you make a song? We have this label now. We want to put out some 45s with political music. And then I was like, okay, then now I have to do it. Now this is my opportunity. I've got to do it now. Otherwise, I'll just regret it until I'm an old man. So I fit well into that because they knew I would probably make something that was kind of political, but it didn't come from there. It came from being a fan of the rap music in the mid 90s to late 90s. The Public Enemy and Brand Nubian, X-Clan, all those folks. Paris was probably my favorite. KRS-One, all those guys. Where hip hop was just all about black awareness and fuck the police, and they had a lot of messages. That was hardly anything coming out without a message in it. And that was part of my dream, that I wanted to make music, but I wanted it to be something that was kind of meaningful. And I've always, as I've evolved as a person, I noticed that I like things that have more than one purpose. If the music only has the purpose of being nice to listen to, or being maybe a success for the artist or whatever, it feels a little bit hollow. But if it also has the purpose of delivering a message, then it makes more sense to me to spend my time on it. Also, what if it didn't become a success? It would still be a success because I got to speak my mind or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of also a way of saying to myself, okay, it's good enough, even if nobody likes it. It'll still be like a political statement or whatever. Fortunately, people did like it, but that, I guess, was the thoughts behind it.
Som bruger støtter jeg en skummelindustri, men de kan også være hjemmedyrket økologi. Og jeg skulle ikke have noget problem med at feede det, men jeg vil hellere fremstille. Jeg bor i en landsby, inde i en stor by, hvor du kan få en kebabret, der slår alt andet du har smagt. Jeg er en af de lokale lige der, hvor jeg bor. Jeg er en af de normale lige der, hvor jeg bor. Ingen har problemer med mig der, hvor jeg bor. Nogen kommer og hænger med mig der, hvor jeg bor.
And I kept that principle. Like, all my songs have some kind of message in them. But anyway, I've been fortunate enough that at least some of my songs have been very popular here, and then it makes even more sense to go out and play all kinds of cool festivals, but also all kinds of shitty discotheques and whatnot, money jobs that you get offered, where it's like, okay, this is super weird playing reggae in this nightclub somewhere where they would never play another reggae artist. But for me, it just felt like a total victory because, okay, I get to fucking go out here in this place where it's all about just alcohol and mind numbing. and I get to say, you know, my shit, like the core of what I want to say. They fucking pay me to come here and say it. That's been a big part of what I think is fun about making music in the end.
Yeah. And Jonna, I know we were talking a little bit before this got started, and you said you knew like probably about like 10 years you kind of knew about Rasmus and everything he was doing. Do you remember any fun moments before you guys actually started, you know, working together? Maybe at one of these discotheques or something like that?
No. But actually, I have one of the greatest memories of this guy because, like, I only knew him as Ras Money back then. I think Raske Ping was just about to happen. And back then,
Ras Money is the DJ name, and Raske Ping is the artist name. Right?
So, like, Ras Money was definitely a thing at this place where I was coming to meet sooner to be his partner, Klumpen. But I had this clothing brand back then, and I just heard Klumpen back then made a song called Criminel, and that was like, it was everywhere. Like, and I'm even like quite far away from this community. I'm like 1 hour drive. It sounds like it's not really that far away, but the music you listen to in Copenhagen and these areas, and the music you listen to in Holbæk is so different. Because like at that point, at least, it was only like radio hits which came to us. So I just met Klumpen throughout this hit called Criminel, and I was there to give him some T-shirts. And Rasmus was actually there doing like, I think he was just warming up for a DJ set that night at Bolsjefabrikken, where I met with Klumpen. And I saw him while he was like standing there on his turntables. He was like rolling a joint with one hand. I'm not sure if it was the ambience of the room. I'm not sure if it was the smoke around the room, which made me see that. But I do remember it as he was doing something with one hand, making it sound like it was mixing. And on the other hand, he was definitely like doing a joint. I was like, wow, this guy. Like, I want to be as good as this guy to roll joints one day and be a DJ. So I remember like that was one of the first things I saw from Rasmus. But later on, like I worked really close with some musicians, and a lot of these musicians were looking at Raske Ping at this point. Like now, I remember he when he did Intelligent, that was one of the tracks which made us want to be like, oh, we want to work with this guy. And it just, for some reason, it never happened. Like a few guys from the same label as we were represented by got to work with him, but we never had to do like collaborations back then. And I don't know why it went like that, but for some reason we are here like collaborating like 10 years later. So I guess it still panned out in some kind of way.
Well, another memorable moment I saw on social media was that Pirate Fest back in 2000. And I heard something about smuggling equipment, and it was a closed town square. Like, can you even talk about it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, what it was that was an interesting time in Copenhagen. Those years around there, around around 2010, I suppose, the end of it, and it started around 2007. There was so much going on in Copenhagen because we had. I think it came from. We had this. It's not really a squad, but it's like an activist house called Ungdomshuset, the youth house, which played a important role in my life and many other people, and it's very much sort of like a epicenter of the whole punk rock anarchist scene in Scandinavia, because it's like a funnel. You kind of go, if you can play a gig there, you can make money for your gas, and you can go all the way up to Finland and Sweden and Norway and all that stuff. So and that place was just magical, and it was about to be evicted and torn down, and that drew a lot of energy to that scene, because everybody was like, "Oh, come on, they can't tear down Ungdomshuset. That's crazy. Let's go demonstrate." So and everybody wanted to come and play there, and I was part of a group of people who organized. Who I guess we kind of wanted to show the municipality of Copenhagen that if you tear down this place, where are we going to go and have crazy raves? Then we're going to do it. Then we're just going to squat a place and have a crazy rave, right? So we did these pirate parties where we would find some kind of closed shop or factory or something that's kind of in town, but not maybe in the. Sometimes it was like dead in the center of town, and sometimes a little bit in the outskirts. And then we would really, really concentrate on making very wicked parties with super equipment, and sometimes we had decorated the whole place. Like the whole place would be graffiti painted, well done, mural style just for this event. Sometimes there'll be a whole city that was compiled with original songs made only for this event, and people were sometimes invited by letter, and they had to look in the letter and see, okay, this is the time, but to see where the place is, you have to go to the elevator at this station facing east, and then up in the corner you could see a sticker that gave you the hint of where the place was. It was planned like it was a fucking bank robbery. Sometimes it was so much work put into it, and some of these parties were the greatest energy that I've ever been in. It was so magical because everybody had to be there when it started, right? Because you can't come and be 20 people and then the police will show up, they'll just close the thing down. But if you're 300 people, it's a little bit of a different situation for the cops. They have to like make a plan and see what they do and blah blah blah, and then you can go on for a few hours maybe or whatever, and then get away. And this particular clip that you saw was from the biggest music festival in the north of Europe called Roskilde Festival. It's here in Denmark, and they had invited that year. They are very sort of keen on political activism and other art than music only. So there'll be performance and graffiti and all kinds of stuff at that festival. And they are quite interested in, they kind of want to embody the spirit of what's going on. So they had invited a bunch of actors from that circuit that I was part of to do activism at the festival. But of course, these people had then smuggled all kinds of equipment into the festival and found a place and texted out an invite and all that shit. And then we threw a party at somewhere, I don't remember like really where, but somewhere on the festival side. And there of course, instantly there was like thousands of people, and the energy was crazy. And the festival people were like, "Fuck, you can't do this. You're right next to the place where the people are sleeping that have to go up early and organize the festival." And it was sort of wrong in every way, but it was so right as well. And I think the festival also, they were like, "Oh, you can't do it," but they were like, "Oh, it's pretty cool you're doing it anyway." They were kind of against it, but kind of, that was a real fun. It was just all those parties. in that era, where like all of them were like, oh shit, this is the peak of my life feeling being there, because the energy was so crazy, and it was illegal and it was fun, and we had, not me personally, but somebody had stolen booze for the bar. So the bar was, if not free, then it was like you pay some ridiculous small amount and get like a huge drink, and it would be free weed, and it would just be crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really? A whole nother world. That was before cell phones, probably, right? Like...
No, not before cell phones, but it was before social media. So the cell phones would just have, it was before smartphones, right? So they just have a text message. But the text messaging was a key element in the thing, because you couldn't organize an event like that so quickly without that, I think. Maybe it would have been more secure, actually, I think the last one we did was without cell phones, because police were much more interested in us, and we had found this very cheeky place to do the last event, or what turned out to be the last event, or at least the last one I was a part of. And I think that one was only invited by mail, like physical mail, but we got busted after like 15 minutes anyway. So
switching gears a little bit with the cannabis, I know you recently, Rasmus, you participated in a debate with Ivan Olausson Klatil, Robert Clark, and Johan Wicklund about the future of cannabis in Sweden. So, maybe bring us into that room. What did you learn from that debate? What's going on there?
Oh yeah, good question. Actually, can't remember that much from it for some reason. It's very recently. Must have been stoned or something. I don't know. It was at a hemp festival in Sweden, and everybody was looking at me because I was on stage with these fine people, and I think I spent most of the time thinking about like, what am I gonna say? But Robert Clark was talking a lot about strains and the history of certain strains, and that the one thing I can remember is probably very embarrassing. People think of me as like a cannabis expert. I'm really not. I'm a lot like what Jenna said. I'm just here to learn. I just want to know more about it. And I learned a thing there, which was probably completely noob, but the famous Finola strain of hemp is from Finland. I had no idea. I didn't think that any strains came from so far north, but apparently Finland is the home place of Finola. I guess everybody knew that. It was new to me. That's one thing I can remember. Yeah, Finola is like a famous hemp strain. It's like the basis. I think it's one of the first. Would you call that type 2 cannabis? I think, where type A being THC, high on THC, low on CBD. Type 2 being high CBD, low THC. Type 3 being equal. I think that's the way they do it. Yeah. And the CBD strains haven't been around for that long. And as I'm pretty sure Finola is one of the first ones that was developed to have all the same qualities as normal cannabis, except low THC and then high CBD.
Yeah, no, that's really cool to hear about the strains and things we didn't know about all around the world. So
yeah, I guess I could remember. I wish I could remember something more, but that's one thing that stuck.
I also saw you also went to the Global Cannabis March in May. Anything fun from that?
That's always a fun affair. It's kind of like just a march of the cannabis, the sect of cannabis people who don't mind everybody seeing them high. So it's a really ugly bunch of people in uncool clothing, and white people with dreadlocks and all that stuff. But it's fun, and it's important that it's happening. I think it's a thing that's been going on for, I think, about 30 years now or something in Denmark, the Cannabis March. So it's kind of like a thing. Yeah, you got to go and be a part of it. But I don't remember if this year was particular I think actually I missed this year, to be honest. But the year before was pretty. It was a pretty good one. I remember I performed on that one. But I was scheduled to perform, but I didn't have it. I think the kids got sick or something. This year.
Yeah. I wanted to learn just a little bit more about the area, you know, because I was reading, you know, talk to me about Pusher Street and kind of just like the hash trade in Copenhagen. Like, you know, why is there a need for hash? You know, what, like, how should the government respond? What is it like? Yeah.
Yeah, such a good question. You can chip in here, of course, Jana. Well, Pusher Street, for people who don't know, is a street, a physical street in an area of Copenhagen called Christiania. And Christiania is it used to be the army, or the army had an area where they would train or whatever, and then they abandoned the area. So it was an unused area, and then in 1971, some hippies got the idea to move out there and just squat and settle and live there, and they did that, and they decided that weed was legal in their area. There's a lot of interesting things that went on. Of course, they would be like a sponge for everybody who was a little bit against the law or whatever. So when heroin hit the scene later in the 70s, they became also the place where all the heroin users would be, and they would, of course, be, well, they're heavily criminalized, of course, and they also usually would live very chaotic lives and bring a lot of crime into the area. And the Christianites, the people that live out there, had made like a blockade. I think it was like 78 or something, where they kicked out all the hard drugs. So like if you wanted to deal hard drugs or use hard drugs, you couldn't be in Christiania. And that's a very crucial change for the area. And that started the big experiment, as I like to call it, where you would have a street in Copenhagen where cannabis was sold right in the open, but you couldn't get other drugs. You just couldn't get cocaine or any other drugs. And that's a rare thing, to have a criminalized market out in the open, but it's only soft drugs, right? And it's a very cool way to do it, I think, because I'm really not the type to put cannabis in a different category than all other drugs. I think we're drug users just as everybody else, and if we are only concerned about legalizing cannabis and having better rights for cannabis people, we just make it even worse for the people that are outside still, you know what I'm saying? Because we are the most privileged part of the many groups of people who use illegal substances. But it's a good idea to have a market where hard drugs is not available, just because cannabis is special in the sense that it's not very dangerous. So it's just good to have a place where people can go and buy that and not be presented with other harder things, in my opinion. And it's been going pretty well out there for many years, but in 2001 we had a change in government in Denmark where it became more right-wing. For the first time, we had like a really right-wing anti-immigration party that was having a lot of power, and that started a trend that has been going on in Denmark ever since, and which is also going on many other places in the world, unfortunately, in other places in Europe, also the States. And that government decided to do something about Christiania. All the other governments has also decided to do something about Christiania, but they were a bit more sort of aggressive. So police started being out there a lot more, and they started putting people in jail a lot more, and that changed the scene around Pusher Street from being a place where people would be happy and friendly and be like, oh, you want this one or that one. There was a crazy. What do you say in English? The amounts of strains you could choose between and the fucking quality of the hash was crazy because it was unique to the world to have a place where you could buy all this cannabis. So it would draw tourists that wanted to smoke from all over the world. And it would just be a place where you could find really good cannabis for many years. But then when they started cracking down on it and throwing people in jail, the vibe out there changed. It became more macho and more dangerous because they would always the authorities would, when they throw people in jail, they disturb the power structures of the cannabis trade. So the people in power all of a sudden was in jail. So other people wanted to get their piece of the pie, and that leads to gang violence. And Pusher Street became more and more violent through the many last years, culminating. Was it this year even? I think it was this year where there was like 5 people shot out there at one time, and I didn't see a guy get shot out there, but I was calling. I had to call 911 on a person who got shot and killed out there just by coincidence. So there was so much violence going on that in the end, the Christianites, the people that live out there, said, "Okay, we can't solve this. We don't have a police force. We are a community, and we are against violence." And we managed to throw out the bikers one time, and we managed to throw out the hard drugs, but we can't throw out like everybody who wants to sell cannabis in this place, which has been officially the cannabis market in Copenhagen for a lifetime. It's not possible, but we suffer so much now under the violence and the pressure from the police that we give up sort of our solidarity with Pusher Street and the Pushers. So now we support the idea of closing it. That's the people of Christiania speaking. And so once the authorities had the support of the people out there, they could put into effect a plan that actually tore down the entire street. Like right now, there is not a street. There's like a hole in the ground. Also because they had to do some plumbing, but Pusher Street is right now not there, and right now it's a very difficult place to find cannabis. Probably the hardest place in Denmark to find cannabis right now. So I think it's a shitty situation. I preferred it when there was lots of weed out there, but I can also understand that you can't just accept people getting shot all the time. That's not fun. And I don't know what should be done. Of course, I think we should legalize fucking cannabis right now, and I hope that happens soon. And I hope it will. I hope that Christiania will become an important place to sell it, because that's where it has traditionally been sold, right? So I think it belongs out there. But right now, there's a little pause in the sale out there, unfortunately. So that's what's going on.
It's really unfortunate because like it's for Denmark and like for Scandinavia, it's such a big part of like hash history. So to see like Pusher Street, like I think the whole of Christiania is a part of hash history, but Pusher Street has been really like influential in that part of the history. So for us to see that get shut down in the way it got shut down is, I think you had to do something at this point because the violence was getting out of hand. But it's a bad, like it's really unfortunate to see it go that way because like it in the light of like Germany legalizing weed, like we could have been like a part of that like history and culture as well, and we could have added on to like a deep history of like hash culture and weed culture because like in Denmark in this area it has been so normal, and you know quite a lot about like that plant and like hash in there as well. But these things are getting lost now. I guess, like, I don't think these people will be hanging around in there waiting for legalization. I guess they're out everywhere. But like, it's on this it came from like gang violence putting it there, or just violence in particular putting it there, and those things just don't. It just didn't add up for like Christiania and like Pusher Street, and it kind of ruined the whole like essence of that, because Pusher Street is just one street throughout like an area where a lot of people lives, and a lot of culture has been living. Like Rasmus and Klumpen has a studio out there as well, like music studio, and like so like just to put some perspective to a lot of the culture which has been a part of like in some kind of like part of the weed culture, because like the music which came from there could have been like inspired by this as well. There was radio stations out there, TV stations, companies which might have had something beneficial out of the weed, and like could have maybe told some really great stories about like the origins of hash in Denmark, and like how it became so big in Denmark, because that's still something I'm not sure how to like describe or like pinpoint in the direction of, like, because hash is so normal here, but we are quite far from Morocco if you look at a map. So how it became so normal without us knowing how it became so normal. But I guess those kind of stories are kind of lost now, and that's mostly one of the fortunate things about losing Pusher Street, is like stories that the history of it is could be gone now. I hope it's not, but it could be, unfortunately.
There's not enough in the history books about Pusher Street for sure. What's a famous Pusher Street strain? I think also then, same as now, people just call hash any fucking thing, you know. There's not really a system around it. Where our shop is sort of, people say that we have kind of funny names on our products, and that definitely that's inspired by the tradition in Pusher Street. I remember they had a heavy indica hash out there at some point that was called Goodbye to Friends and Family. I like that.
Come on. That's so great.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I would say it was more like you had special places you always came around to buy your weed from. Like it wasn't the strains, but you had some kind of relation to the dealers you had in there. I had the same guy I went to every time I came there, and I'm sure he lied every time I asked him what the greatest strain he had was. He might just have pointed in some kind of direction, but you had this kind of like relationship to them. So I always went to the same place, and like I was always looking for something new, and they were always good to like have, at least in this like particular shop, they used to have like little signs saying like, oh, bubble kush and like banana kush, and like they had little cool like drawings on them and stuff like that. That's what like connected me to that stand. So I used to come there only because of the art they had on the weed. So it's such like little details which made us choose one of the other ones in there.
Wow. And you said it was like a street market. Like, was it super open, or do you have to know someone and they're all down there?
Completely open, like a fucking any other market. You're just the street, and then there's these stalls where they would have their stuff on display with the prices and whatnot. And for many years, police was very rarely out there. They couldn't come out there unless they were like completely big ass gang of people in riot gear. But the more the police came out there, the more the fucking good atmosphere went, and the expertise also went, because out there back in the days, there was people making niche products and hash oil and interesting ice and all kinds of stuff, and they would have specialized, Danish grown weed strains or whatever, interesting hash and weed from Jamaica, all kinds of shit. And there would be people standing there who knew a lot about it, and you would have, like Jenna said, a personal relationship with them. And some of them would even brand themselves. They would start having names on their shops, and one of the famous ones had the best skateboarding team in Denmark. Like all the best skateboarders were skating for that team, which was sponsored by this pusher. And but all that stuff died out because of the pressure from the police. It just became, you didn't know anybody out there. In the end, you didn't even know what gang they were from. There were like 5 international criminal organizations active in the same little streets. So it's actually a success story that more people didn't get shot up there. But of course, it's unstable to have a scene like that if you keep going hard on it, right? Because if you left it alone, like they did back in the days, it's not really a problem. Some people did get shot out there, but people get shot so many other places as well. It's not. It wasn't unique to Christiania. It wasn't like a big issue before the recent years where it really became okay. This is a bit of a problem.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it definitely has an evolution over time, and that I love how you phrase it, the great experiment. Because there's this area just cannabis. It's probably nothing else, just cannabis, and
there was mushrooms also for a while actually. Mushrooms was tolerated, and then they decided on a meeting that mushrooms was also now drugs. So mushrooms got kicked out. But in the end, now they didn't, as far as I understand, didn't really sell coke or anything that officially, but it was definitely there. These paranoid pushers were also on coke and had coke in their pockets, and they would be sold maybe not on Pusher Street, but then around the corner or whatever. So the whole greatness of the experiment got destroyed before the street got demolished. So Christiania is still really worth checking out if you're ever around these parts. It's because they have other experiments going on. Like it's legalized cannabis was one of them, but another one is only use local work. For instance, like every building out there is built only by people that live out there, using sustainable materials, and everything is communally owned. You don't own your house out there. The community owns the house, and you pay some kind of ridiculously small rent, and but you can't sell it. So you're fucked if you want to move away. You get. But you can maybe trade, because it's a very nice area of Copenhagen, but it's a cool place to see with a lot of interesting architecture, and everything is, you can just see everything is made by stone people, and that's nice.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to today, like the continuing on the evolution. Like, tell me when did the Raske planter enterprise come along, and when did that get started in brick and mortar?
It started in the company is founded in 2020, and then I opened a web shop, and then I opened a physical shop last year around this time, actually in August, I think, a little bit later, and Janet came into the company also around a year ago. And for me, it was just I kind of wanted something else to do alongside the music. I guess you can say the music wasn't so popular as it has been. Also, I wasn't so productive as I was earlier, and I felt a little bit sort of trapped doing only that, and feeling that, okay, if the music isn't successful, I'm not a success in a way I would feel. So I thought, okay, maybe I should have another job besides that. And I've been selling cannabis for many years on a small time basis. And my specialty has been weed, as in pot, as in, outdoors, every person kind of thing, not high grade skunk or any fancy strain or anything. Just the green stuff you can grow in your garden. A lot of people actually want that. They don't want something that makes them extremely stoned. They just want some that makes them a little bit stoned. And also they want something that's away from the gangs and has maybe been grown under, the best possible sort of conditions for the environment. So I sourced that and sold that to some friends, and when I saw the CBD thing becoming a thing that could also happen in Denmark, I thought, okay, let me jump on that train and see what I can do with that, because I already have a little bit experience as a dealer and quite a bit experience as a user. My music has been very much advocating legalization, and become through the music, and as I guess also starting from when I was a journalist, I would make a lot of things about drugs. So I was already kind of a debate person that would be invited to talk about these subjects. So I thought, okay, that's already pretty good branding for a cannabis company. Maybe I should start one of those. And I decided to have one that has a lot of focus on sustainability, because, like I said, with the music, it has to have another purpose than just filling the pockets and being fun, so if it's also an environmentally friendly, like a trailblazer for environmentally friendly weed, that makes sense to me. Then it's really I feel proud spending so much time on it. Because there's an ulterior motive to it. Yeah, and it's been a lot more fun since Jenna came into the company, because before that it was I had other employees, but I didn't really have like a it's just been evolving a lot after he came into the company. I'm grateful for that.
And if there's one thing I love about you guys, it's just it seems like you get along so well, and obviously bring different. Like, you have different strengths, and before the show, I was talking a little bit with Jana about your song Faxi Condi, and kind of just about that, the intermingling of cannabis and the music side of you. And I wanted to see maybe you could break that just a little bit about that song. Faxi Condi is also a beverage, if I understand.
Yeah, it's a beverage. It's a soft drink. It's a soda, which is it's like a classic Danish soda that came into existence, I think, at the end of the 70s. And it's like was a big thing in the 80s, and then since then it's just been a stable sort of go-to soda. And for some reason, if you're smoking weed, right, many people would like a little bit of something to sip on while smoking. And for instance, a Coca-Cola, popular drink, you can't drink like 10 Coca-Colas in a row, right? You can drink maybe 2, and then your mouth is weird, and it's like, the Faxi Condi, you can just keep throwing it down the hatch. So I guess because of that, Faxi Condi became such a classic within like the graffiti and weed smoker community. Like there's a graffiti crew called FK, and there's references to this soda so many places, and it's kind of like if you come to a home and you'll see like gamer equipment and a bunch of empty Faxi Condi bottles, you're also kind of looking for the long papers, right? Because it's just it's kind of a dog whistle, right? They'll be like, okay, these guys drink a lot of Faxi Condi, huh? Then the other smokers would be like, okay, I think I'm gonna hang out with them. They'll probably roll up soon. And so we were making music, me and 2 friends, and we were talking like, what should we make a song about? And most of our songs were about weed anyway, but then there's this classic way of making a weed song where it doesn't sound like a weed song, like Mary Jane, for instance. That song, right, sounds like a love song. In the end, turns out, oh, Mary Jane is not a girl, it's the weed. Okay, wow, how clever. And we thought, okay, let's make it that way, that kind of song, but instead of singing about weed, we just sing about Faxi Condi, because all the other smokers would be like, I don't know what these guys are up to. So we made the song about the soda and how nice the fucking soda is. But there would also be weed mentioned in it and Christiania mentioned in it. And it just blew the fuck up. It completely turned our lives on the other end. It was like the most played song that year on the radio, and it coincided with me and my friend Klumpen put together a band, and we played our first major concert, and that summer was just so phenomenal. And the sale of that soda went up 11% in the retail market, and it was already a really popular soda. So it changed a lot for us, and that opened the doors from the reggae community and being an underground phenomenon to just being chart-topping, invited to all the or nominated to all the awards, receiving a few of them, and getting all kinds of all the stuff that would happen, like when in a Simpsons episode where Lisa becomes famous or whatever. All the same shit just happened. Like, okay, all right, now we're in this show. Now we're friends with these people. This is fun. But the song was about weed, and everybody loved it, and the kids loved it because it's a soda, and the Muslims loved it because it's a soda. It's like something everybody uses, right? It's kosher, it's halal, it's for the kids. But our song was about weed, but you can still listen to it and think it's about the soda. So that was very fun, and it's still fun.
Any takeaways, Jonna, from that song?
I would say, like, I was describing this to Jack before you came in, Rasmus, as it was nearly the first pandemic I experienced in my lifetime. It was everywhere. And like, I was even trying to tell Jack before, like, we started this interview about, I still don't know what the connection between weed and Faxikondi is, but everybody just know there is a connection, and everybody just know this is how you spot it out. So for these guys to put it out so obvious, everybody knew as a smoker this was a smoking tune. So everybody who was in a car like smoking up, they would definitely be banging this tune. But on the same time, it was so weird to see kids dancing to it and like parents listening to it. Even when you go to Rasmus concerts today, this is one of the most trippiest songs to see, like, who's singing along to this song. Because on the same time as I just feel like it's a great song and it's a catchy tune, I feel like somebody's trying to say something when they sing this out loud. So I was looking around in the crowd last time. I was like, okay, there's a few people who's like maybe 20 years older than me who loves Faxikondi, nearly the same as me. We might even have something more in common. So yeah. I feel like this blew cover on a lot of people I knew. Like, all of a sudden, Faxikondi was the favorite song in their iTunes. And I was like, this is the iTunes days, I remember. So it was like people's most played song in the iTunes. And you would be like, oh, do you smoke? Yeah, I do, actually. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I definitely feel like that was a moment and I would even say for my generation, I'm a bit younger than Rasmus. So for my generation, it was this pivotal moment for us to speak out openly about weed. Like, it became sort of like cool to be a guy who was smoking weed. And before this moment, I feel like it was like when me and the guys were smoking, we would be hiding in like parking lots and like hiding for the public. But like after these guys came with the track, I definitely remember a big change in it. It became a bit more cool and definitely more accepted. So I think the track definitely changed a lot of things for Rasmus personally, but for like smokers in general, like it became. We have a Danish anthem now. I don't know which kind of anthem you can put upon that, but this is a Danish anthem for weed, I guess.
That's really cool. And, I guess getting into the weeds, Jonna, I was wondering if maybe you can give a little tour of the back of the house, because I know you're the head of operations, so you know this stuff.
And for that sake, I've been locked in this basement. I'm just kidding, man. I'll show you here. I'm sitting here like we have a little work situation going on here where me and Rasmus normally would sit and work, and like it's a bit messy right now because I've been.
It looks like you're rolling up there, brother.
No, I'm not really. I'm just looking at the biotubes over here, testing products, So here we got like stash up here. These are called C-Vols. These are actually where you put product in. I can show you one of these as well.
Yeah, let's break it out.
We prioritize having those. These are expensive as fuck, but they're really good for keeping the weed. You can just see that the weed is doing better down in those rather than keeping them in the plastic bag that they usually ship in.
More
the first
sterile,
thing you'll notice in these is like you have like Boveda packs in these, which are like regulators, which regulates both up and down.
I'm sure Jack knows about those.
Yeah, you might have seen these before, right? Yeah.
So explain to our viewers, like, why is it important? Why can't we just put them in a mason jar and call it a day?
It's just the plant. Just it's better for it to be in the dark, first of all, and to be in a environment with no oxygen. Like we don't suck the oxygen out of it, but we keep them closed. We don't. We have. You see in the background
Wow.
yeah. Which strain is this, by the way?
This is in Danish we call it the secret one. It's because we always find we figure out some crazy names for it. We haven't figured out one for this one, so it's just the secret one for now.
Yeah, but we keep the weed in these black jars that you can see in the background. That's kind of where we keep it to take it and put it in a bag, and then the big jars are for longer storage. And we just try to give them as little light and as little oxygen as possible to hold back the decarboxylation, really. We have a strict law in Denmark. You can have 0.2% THC in your products. More than that, it's considered drugs. THCA is not mentioned in the law. And THCA, most of the THC would be THCA in a fresh plant, right? But if you leave it in a plastic bag or a see-through jar, it will decarboxylate, turn into THC faster, and thus become illegal. And also, it protects the terpenes and all the other good stuff. It's just the plants are just doing better down in those. My experience.
Seaval continues curing your plants, so it definitely It converts your, of course, some of the things like the acid versions into like the regular versions of the cannabinoids, but it's mainly like it still keeps curing when you have them in these like Seaval, like these kind of like containers here, storage containers.
And do you have any of the hash there, the CBD hash we could see?
We actually do. We do.
Because that would be pretty beautiful. I haven't had CBD hash, but I've never had CBD hash in my life.
Oh, really? Yeah. Hash is just our traditional, Denmark has always been a hash country for some reason, like you mentioned, much more than skunk and all that stuff that kind of came in the 90s. But before that was just hash and sometimes weed, pot, but mostly just hash. So the demand for CBD hash is also strong, and we have some quite good hash makers. In the hash we have is mostly made in here in Scandinavia, in the southern part of Sweden, and it's very good quality. And when Jenna is back, we can see it. You can't smell it, but it smells fucking awesome. Good quality. Hash is like a niche product in the States, right?
Yeah, like I'm calling in from New York State, and we have been legal since March 2021, and we don't have that many hash brands. I mean, and the ones that we do, it's not what you guys have.
No, for some reason. Hey, what's up, dog?
What's up? I don't know what happened, but I think the hash was too good or something for the internet connection.
Yeah, most likely.
So this is how.
Which one is that now?
The hash will.
This is Red Torino.
Red Torino. Yeah, means red Torino in Danish.
What is it? I'm sorry.
It's
a CBD and CBG
mixture.
Hash.
Wow.
Yeah, it's made with a keef that was that's somehow been developed in the University of Torino in Italy, and it's made into hash in Skåne in Sweden, and it's just a very popular CBD/CBG hash, and in the darker end of the light spectrum.
That's interesting though, coming from Italy, and then coming to process by you guys. That's really cool.
Yeah, Italy is the premier producer of CBD hemp in Europe. to my knowledge, at least. Most of our plants are from Italy.
Got another
That one is
here.
probably this is Sosen.
Yeah, this is Sosen.
This is Sosen is inspired by charas hash from India and Pakistan.
With your hands.
So it's very soft and very dark. It's a little bit inspired also by the temple ball tradition of hash making. So we get them in these round balls.
Yeah.
That's a CBD hash only.
That's amazing that you guys are doing CBD hash. That's so cool. Because we don't act, like I said, we don't even have CBD in our dispensaries. Like we have maybe like 1 or 2 strains, but it's like 99% high THC cannabis. And it's just interesting to see what's going on in the legal sphere around the world. And it's cool that there's even a demand for concentrates for CBD, which is just, I think people should be interested in that.
Yeah, that's totally that. I mean, I think there's also, I mean, if THC was legal in Denmark, it would probably also dominate the market, I'm pretty sure. But I think there would still be a place for CBD, that it really has its own thing going on. And I'm surprised to hear that it's not present in the dispensaries. I actually thought it was. How about low THC or like 1-to-1 THC CBD strains? Are they available at all?
Again, it's always different between the medical and the adult use, but in terms of the medical, they have more varietals available for, the 1-to-1, this and that. But, you go into a dispensary in terms of flower, the only, you're not going to find any 1-to-1. You'll only find 1-to-1 edibles. So even that is rare to find. So,
yeah, I think many people make their own 1-to-1 with CBD products and THC products and mix them. That's I've heard about that. We are not allowed to sell cannabis for consumption in Denmark. We sell it as an odor product. It's a like a potpourri, a thing that you would put in your house to make it smell better. So we can't tell people what to do with it. And say, "Oh, put it in a joint, smoke it, you'll feel better." So we're just very focused on how the plants smell, really.
Yeah,
and that's what we can communicate about with the public.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to be creative. You got to market yourself in a creative way when you're doing that. You're basically saying this is like an aromatic product.
It is. That's what it is. Yeah.
So, but go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's just that it is. I mean, the aroma is so crucial in cannabis. And are you familiar with the study that came out last year called the Nose? There's like a huge American study of cannabis users where they found they had people blind test a bunch of flowers, and they would evaluate them, of course, not knowing anything about the strain name or price or percentages, anything like that. And they would evaluate it from, tactile experience and aroma. And then they would later get to smoke these products, not knowing which was what. And in that study, there was no correlation between high THC percentage and how much people thought that it kicked their ass. The one of the only statistically significant correlations that they found was between if people liked the smell of the flower and if they liked the effect of it. So that just goes to show how important the aroma really is in cannabis.
The entourage effect. We have to know that this is everything coming together, not just the THC. It's so much more.
Yeah, true.
And I have to know. I mean, I have to know about this because I saw this online. The Jazz Blumps strain. Is that how Jazzblomst. How do you say
Yeah,
that?
just means jazz flower, jazz blomst.
Jazzblomst. Okay, so like a jazz flower.
Yeah.
I play jazz piano, so
Oh, really?
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
What type, like, what's that strain like?
It's very mellow and it's very harmonic, I guess you can say, in a way. It's just a calming, sort of grounding, smooth, well put together, high end, elite flower, I would say. It's just a really, really good, well cured flower that some fine people down in Italy has been sipping the espressos and caring for to the utmost.
Wow. I gotta get my hands on some of that because I love CBD and I love
All
jazz,
right.
and I gotta get
All right,
mellow.
we should send something over.
I want to get some more questions on you. It says on your Instagram, it says design to disrupt, and it seems like very similar with like everything Rasmus is doing with like advocacy and community and just kind of being how you operate. Like how do you disrupt through your design? That's so cool.
Well, to be honest, I think more it's like philosophy than it might be reality at all points. But I feel like design, if it doesn't disrupt anything, I feel like it's a waste of like thoughts and waste of creativity in some kind of way. Like, because the opposite would be like it blends in and does nothing, I guess. So for me, like designing things, like that could be designing a company, or it could be designing a new skateboard or headphones or whatever it does. Like I'm a big fan of design changing something. So like for an instance, if we take something like PayPal, PayPal before that existed, internet banking wasn't really a thing. But after PayPal came along and now you could transfer money, I think there might have been few other players at the same time as PayPal, but this is the one which really sticks out because it really changed the way that we now transfer and operate with money. But that's a design of a company which disrupted the whole industry of maybe even the whole world of how we function. So I love the idea of designing and operating in something that can change the landscape of what it used to be. Let's take an example. I know Elon Musk is like a really controversial person, but what Tesla cars has been doing for the industry of cars now, like everybody got a electric car now, and I think that came along with Tesla disrupting with like beautiful designs on these cars and like really go to an easy to manage like systems. So I'm a big fan of like designing things which disrupts like the industry as we know it, or change. I think disrupt is maybe like that's the most like negative word I could use for change, but it's still it could feed something really positive. So to bring that back to what I'm doing with Rasmus in Raske Plender, I feel we are definitely trying to design something here which disrupt, because this market is not really created yet. This whole like idea of how cannabis is sold, and like the whole idea of how it's grown and distributed, and how it goes to like different distributors. Like I think this is a part of like my whole DNA of wanting to like design a company which is so different from everything else I worked in, from our like cultural what you say from our internal ways of dealing with things to like the way we deal with customers is just so different, but it disrupts something, because I think it puts a lot of pressure on the rest of the cannabis industry when we do something this way. I like the idea of that. So when I did design back in the days, this was the same things I would do. I would take colors that I knew when you open a design book that these two colors should never stand together. That's when my ideas would start. Like, okay, if you say that, this is the way to do it. Like even the fashion industry where I come from, like every year Pantone will pick out like I would say like 20 cool colors for the year. I would always pick the colors which wasn't in the magazine. because I knew a lot of people would be thinking like me, like we don't want to fit into the picture. We want to stand out of it. And we're not afraid of standing out of the picture. So the whole idea of designing to disrupt, I'm not sure if I've ever done it yet, but I think like some of the greatest work I have done in this regard has been what we've been doing with Raske. And we definitely trying to change the field of cannabis in a way. And I'm not sure if this is, I'm not saying this is the only right way to do it, but we're definitely putting some light on something we think are the right way to do it. And this is definitely the code of like designing to disrupt, I guess.
I just thought when I read that, I was like, like we could design something to disrupt, or there's this design that just in it being what it is disrupts. And
yeah, I think sometimes like half of the times it's something you intend to do, and half of the times it's something which it just happens to do. And both of it's equally okay for me. Like if it goes, if somebody takes hand of a project I do and it turns out to disrupt the world in some kind of way, I always think status quo as being the worst situation human beings can be in. Like we need to evolve in some kind of way. Standing still is so, if it gets me afraid when I'm standing like still for too long. So changing something by designing something is something I'm a big fan of. I'm not sure if I'm the best like guy to do it, but it's definitely something I want to be better at and like keep on doing. So one day when me and Rasmus is done with this like cannabis mission, I might even myself start a company which has to disrupt like the status quo of how do you go to work. My workplace is great. Like my boss never asked me why my eyes are red or like anything about like how the we just have a different way of working together, and I wish everybody had this experience. But Rasmus is designing a future of companies right now, and it's disrupting how everybody else used to do it. Because when people hear about how nice I have it at my place, people would like, most of my friends are always like, hey, I wish I had one of those workplaces which gives you that kind of freedom. But like it has to start somewhere, and he's right now disrupting by design like how we should go to work and like what the norm of a workplace is. So I'm a big fan of that. Like I always look for people who do that. Like most of these people are so controversial, so I don't want to put out any names on who I've been looking for. Like looking.
No, put them out there. But this is loud thoughts, man. Bring them out.
Like let's put a guy out like Steve Jobs, because like one of the things he did for me, at least for my understanding of what a computer is, electronic is, like electronics for me changed with Steve Jobs, because it turned down from being, it came from being this like really nerdy and not really understandable thing to a sexy thing that everybody understood. But it really changed the way of people using phones and computers. People using a MacBook or iPhone will always go that direction now, because they have like a guy who designed like the whole universe for them, but he disrupted the way it functioned before that. So he's one of the guys I always looked at, like Apple, and looked at like what have they been doing, because they did a lot of things right, while we can speak about the environmental impact that they had, like negative, and like there's a lot of negatives behind technological like development. I know that. But what they did with the technology is what I'm like trying to look on and say, okay, they did something great here. And even a guy like, I hate to put it this way, because he got a lot of opinions that I don't agree on, but like a guy like Kanye West, like I've been looking for him the longest, because like I remember him being in like news saying, hey man, they tell me only to do beats, but now I want to be a rapper. And then he became a rapper. And then he was like, yo man, they tell me only to be a rapper, but now I want to do clothing. And then he started doing clothing. And then he was like, yo, Nike don't want to give me a deal over here, and I want to do shoes now. And then he started doing shoes. The way this guy has been moving like so rapidly with like his own growth, and I think like his own visions, and like stepping into those like different boxes, is a guy who knows to design to disrupt. So I feel like some of these persons, like I know it's controversial to be that kind of guy, and I think you can do it like more elegant, like Rasmus is doing it. That's a way more elegant way of doing it. But like, I just love the way of, like those companies and those people have thought out some of their ideas and visions, whatever opinion they have besides that is not really me. But the way they put out the visions and change those things is just so it's magical. And they do that, like they bend reality to whatever they want it to look like. And I'm a big fan of that. Like, I love that.
I wanted to see, just to wrap things up here. This was such a great conversation, guys. And, if you guys just wanted to say, any other things about exciting projects you're working on, just updates in your life, like that's all you guys. If you have anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to say thank you for being interested in a small little country, a small little company in Denmark. I'm stoked that that you want to talk to us. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything to add. Oh, you said you was a jazz pianist.
Yeah.
I put out a few jazz records on my label, actually, that maybe you should check out. This band called Bremer McCoy. I sent you the lettering so you can see it. It's very Scandinavian music.
Ooh.
And it's very smoker friendly as well. I think
like
you'll find it'll be in the jazz section, but it's not. It's kind of modal jazz connected to dub. They are a big name here now. The first 3 albums were on my label. I'll send you a link.
Please do. Yes, of course. And Jana, anything for you, man?
I would just say this was really a pleasant talk to have with you. Like, this is the first time we speak with you, but I feel like we've known you for so long already. It's only like a 2 hours talk. So yeah, thank you for a great experience, man. Like this, I hope for you as well that this kicks off and this is your way of living next time we see you.
Hey, I couldn't do it without friends like you guys, and I appreciate you being so open to share the story. That's what Loud Thoughts is about. Our mission is to expand cannabis-infused storytelling through human narrative, and you guys did that today. So to all of our viewers, thank you for watching and listening to the Loud Thoughts podcast. This is Jack Porcari. You can find me on Instagram at the Canna Professor, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bless.